Have you ever experienced that highly specific, deeply complicated, just total stomach-churning sensation of returning to your childhood hometown?
Oh, absolutely.
Right, like you know the exact feeling I'm talking about. You're driving past the old city limits, and the landscape shifts into something so familiar it almost causes this physical ache.
And your heart just starts pounding.
Exactly. It's not always a joyful homecoming, especially when you're kind of dreading what you might find waiting for you there.
Yeah, there's this potent mix of nostalgia and anxiety.
And the terrifying realization that while the town might look exactly the same as it did when you left, you have changed entirely.
Or worse,
Right. Worse.
maybe you haven't changed in the ways you planned,
Hmm.
and the town suddenly acts as this giant mirror reflecting your lack of progress.
It really is a profound psychological reckoning.
It is. The physical geography of our past colliding with the emotional reality of our present. It forces us to confront the delta between who we were and who we are now.
Which we usually try to avoid.
Oh, completely. We compartmentalize when we're busy living our day-to-day lives somewhere else. But crossing that geographical boundary shatters those compartments.
Yeah.
You aren't just driving into a town, you are driving into your own history.
And that incredibly loaded, messy collision is the exact focus of today's deep dive into our source material.
I've been so looking forward to this one.
Me too. We are exploring the book Just Friends by Haley Pham.
Which is such a fascinating text.
It really is. Now, for those of you who know the author's background, Haley Pham is a massive content creator. She's a tastemaker who has spent, well over a decade building an online community.
Right, and as a fun bit of meta context,
Yeah.
she's married to fellow massive creator Ryan Trahan.
Exactly. So she has this innate understanding of Gen Z and millennial anxieties. But we need to establish the mission of this deep dive right out of the gate.
Yes, let's set the record straight on that.
This is not just a breezy, superficial beach read.
Not at all.
This is a really layered contemporary debut novel. It utilizes the second chance romance trope as almost a Trojan horse.
That's a great way to put it.
Thanks. It uses that trope to explore incredibly heavy, relatable themes. We are diving into profound grief, the crushing weight of family sacrifice, and the sheer terror of stepping into adulthood and realizing you might be sprinting down the wrong path.
The narrative terrain we are going to be mapping out today covers the intersecting lives of three central figures.
Okay, let's break them down.
First, we have Blair, our protagonist. She's standing on the precipice of her post-college adult life, seemingly holding all the right cards.
The perfect job, the perfect plan.
Exactly. Then we have her great-aunt Lottie, a woman of immense resilience whose sudden battle with a terminal illness is the catalyst forcing Blair's return to this hometown.
And the third.
Finally, we have Declan Renshaw, the former childhood best friend turned high school boyfriend turned absolute stranger for the last 4 years.
Yeah, that 4-year gap is huge.
We are going to examine how these three lives tangle, break apart, and attempt to weave back together.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the excerpts we have are an emotional roller coaster.
They really are.
But rather than just recounting the plot, I want to get into the psychological weeds. There is a mountain of unsaid history here.
Absolutely a mountain.
Every passive-aggressive comment, every ghosted message in this story, it's all rooted in a deep psychological defense mechanism.
We will certainly be examining why these characters build the specific impenetrable walls they do. Let's start by establishing the physical and emotional environment.
Set the scene for us.
We are in Seabrook, California. The text paints a picture of a town that feels aggressively idyllic.
Aggressively idyllic is the perfect phrase.
It's a picturesque, tourist-filled coastal haven. You drive through a tunnel that transports you from vast open skies into a town with an overhang of cypress trees.
Fairy tale cottages everywhere.
Right. Ocean waves crashing against steep cliffs, and a beloved local bookstore called Seabrook's Books and Nooks. It reads like a sanctuary.
It sounds like a sanctuary on paper, for sure. But for Blair, driving back into this town feels like a literal physiological threat.
The contrast is jarring.
The juxtaposition between Seabrook's fairy tale aesthetic and Blair's internal state is incredibly stark. She's coming back because she got the call.
The call nobody wants to get.
Right. Her great-aunt Lottie has been moved to at-home hospice care with stage 4 lung cancer.
And the timing is just brutal.
Brutal. Blair is weeks away from graduating from Pepperdine University. She's about to start a highly prestigious consulting job at Ernst & Young in New York City.
Her entire life is scheduled.
Spreadsheeted, ready for launch, and this news acts as a massive derailment.
To understand the magnitude of this derailment, we have to look closely at Lottie's history. Lottie isn't just an eccentric aunt.
No, she's everything.
She is the foundational bedrock of Blair's existence. The text details how Lottie fled Saigon at age 20 as it fell to the communists. We are talking about severe acute trauma here.
Unimaginable trauma.
She boarded a boat meant to hold 200 people. But out of sheer desperation, 1,000 people forced themselves onto it.
1,000 people.
Yes. She spent 7 days hidden on a lower level, lying on a bunk, trying not to move, surviving on severely rationed food.
It's an unimaginable survival scenario. And after surviving that and waiting months for a sponsor in Orange County, she finally makes her way to Seabrook.
And she doesn't stop there.
No. Instead of finishing college in a language she barely knew, she opened a single convenience store. And through sheer grit, she expanded that into an empire of 7 locations.
She built a kingdom out of nothing.
Literally nothing. But her defining act of love, the one that wires Blair's entire psychological framework, happened when Blair was 5 years old.
Right, when they arrived on her doorstep.
Exactly. Blair and her mother showed up, fleeing an abusive husband. Lottie took them in immediately. She provided refuge and literally raised Blair alongside Blair's mother.
What's fascinating here is the psychological weight of Lottie's sacrifices on Blair.
It's so heavy.
If we look at this through the lens of family systems theory, Blair is exhibiting classic symptoms of first-generation guilt.
Even though Blair herself isn't the immigrant.
Exactly. Some sociologists refer to it as the immigrant bargain. There is an unspoken, often unpayable debt that the younger generation feels toward the older generation, who sacrificed everything for their safety.
So Blair's pursuit of this corporate Ernst & Young job in New York...
It doesn't actually stem from a passion for consulting.
Not at all. It reads as a required payment.
Precisely. Her mother and Lottie sacrificed their lives to give Blair a safe runway, so Blair feels a fundamental obligation to become financially bulletproof to protect them in return.
I think you hit the nail on the head regarding that feeling of a required payment. It's a transactional view of love that Blair has internalized.
Even though Lottie doesn't view it that way.
Lottie views it the exact opposite way. Lottie and her mom are the furthest thing from overbearing. Lottie is literally on her deathbed, speaking in comforting, broken English, telling Blair, congratulations on graduating, using the Vietnamese word for child.
She's so supportive.
She insists, no crying for me. I've had a happy life. She actively tries to shoo Blair out the door to go enjoy life.
Lottie's philosophy is profound.
Share that quote she has about fear.
She tells Blair, the fear part only come when it's love. The kind of love that burrows so deep it transforms you. If you lose it, it feels like losing a part of yourself too.
Wow.
That line is the thematic anchor of the entire narrative. Lottie is acknowledging that the terror Blair feels isn't just a fear of death, it's the toll of profound attachment.
And Lottie willingly pays that toll.
She does, and she tries to shield Blair from the pain. But the tragic irony here is that by being so completely selfless, Lottie inadvertently exacerbates Blair's guilt.
Because Blair feels she can't show her own pain.
Right. Blair feels she has to repress her agonizing grief to maintain the facade of the successful, unbothered daughter they worked so hard to raise. She is intellectualizing her grief rather than processing it.
And because she's intellectualizing it, she needs a massive distraction.
Something to fill the hours.
Lottie practically forces her out of the house, so Blair decides she needs a summer job. She walks into a local coffee shop with a help wanted sign.
And this is where the collision happens.
Yes. She encounters the other major ghost of Seabrook. The manager of the coffee shop is Declan Renshaw.
Her childhood best friend of 12 years.
Her former high school boyfriend.
The person she hasn't spoken a single word to in 4 years.
It's wild. The construction of this collision is brilliant because of the immediate visual contrast it presents.
Let's talk about that contrast.
We know from the text that the Declan of 4 years ago was a star high school quarterback. He was fielding college scout inquiries as a freshman. He was the local golden boy.
But the Declan standing behind the counter is a stark departure from that image.
Completely different.
He's managing a local cafe, he's wearing glasses, which he hasn't done since middle school. And most importantly, the narrative specifically notes that Blair spots a subtle limp in his walk.
Let's talk about that limp. It is doing so much heavy lifting in the text before they even speak a single word to each other.
It suggests a complete disruption of his trajectory.
But before Blair can even process that, the reintroduction happens, and it is a masterclass in tension.
It's so awkward.
Blair bumps into him, stammers out an apology, and Declan just looks at her with an entirely blank face and says, Ms. Lang.
Ms. Lang.
He calls her Mrs. Lang, and proceeds to treat her like a complete stranger walking in off the street for a barista interview.
It is a textbook example of a psychological defense mechanism, specifically reaction formation.
Explain that for us.
He's experiencing an overwhelming surge of internal emotional stimuli upon seeing her, so he outwardly expresses the exact opposite. Complete clinical detachment.
Protect himself.
Right. The use of misalignment is a linguistic shield. He is explicitly drawing a boundary line, communicating that their shared history is entirely irrelevant in this space.
You know, I read that slightly differently, actually.
How so?
I don't think it's just a defense mechanism to protect his feelings. I think it's deeply rooted in the current power dynamics.
That's a good point. Look at their relative positions.
Yeah, exactly. In high school, Declan was the star athlete. He had the social capital. Now, Blair is walking in with a prestigious Pepperdine degree, weeks away from a corporate consulting job in Manhattan.
She represents upward-class mobility.
She represents escape. Declan is the townie ex-boyfriend managing the local coffee shop. Even though he's conducting the interview, there is an inherent vulnerability and perhaps a deep insecurity for him in this setup.
So he uses the formality to assert control.
Calling her Mrs. Lang almost feels like a preemptive strike to reclaim some authority in the room.
That is a very fair read. The socioeconomic shift between them is palpable. It places Declan in a defensive posture immediately.
And Blair reacts to that.
She does. Feeling the sting of being treated like a stranger by someone who knows the darkest corners of her childhood, she immediately counterattacks.
During the interview, Declan asks her a totally mundane question. He says, "What 3 words would your closest friends use to describe you?"
Standard interview fare.
Right. But Blair immediately weaponizes the question. She asks if he means college friends, or maybe high school friends, or middle school friends.
Drawing attention to how long they've known each other.
She is intentionally highlighting the sheer volume of time he has known her, and her actual answer is a guided missile.
It really is.
She tells him her friends would describe her as loyal. She looks him in the eye and says that when she loves someone, she truly would not let anything stand in the way of us ever again.
Ouch.
She adds, "I would stick by them forever." Well, as long as it is up to me, of course.
Is a calculated, brutal jab at him for initiating their breakup 4 years ago.
She is dragging their personal, unresolved trauma right into the middle of a professional barista interview.
It's hostile, but it's deeply revealing. It shows that Blair hasn't processed the breakup any more than she's processed Lottie's illness.
They are both just stuck.
If we extrapolate from the physical clues, the subtle limp, the loss of the football career, Declan has experienced a massive loss of identity. His future was rewritten against his will.
Just like Blair's present is being rewritten by Lottie's cancer.
Right. They are both carrying the immense weight of lost futures, but they are too entrenched in their defensive postures to recognize the shared grief in each other.
Exactly. To really understand why that tension in the coffee shop is so suffocating, we have to look at the anatomy of their relationship and ultimately their breakup.
The foundation.
The text provides these vital flashbacks to their high school days, and they prove that this wasn't just a casual hormonal teen romance.
They were best friends for 12 years before they ever crossed the romantic line.
The intimacy is so lived in. There's this memory where Declan buys a cheap, squishy foam football.
I love this detail.
Blair is totally baffled. Why does a state champion quarterback have a toy football? And he admits, completely embarrassed, that he bought it just so he'd have an excuse to practice with her.
He wanted a way to spend time with her without breaking her fingers with a regulation spiral.
It's so sweet.
That anecdote illustrates a profound emotional attentiveness. He isn't demanding she enters his world on his terms. He's actively modifying his world to ensure she can participate safely.
We see this intellectual comfort in their banter, too, like the bird debate.
The bird debate is fantastic.
They are hanging out on the football field, and they get into this hyper-specific argument over what kind of bird Blair resembles.
Declan shoots down a duck.
Blair suggests a flamingo, claiming they are sophisticated.
And Declan immediately counters that flamingos are the lawyers of birds and have terrible faces up close.
Which is hilarious, so instead he dubs her a blue-footed booby.
Referencing her baby blue high-top Converse.
And her occasional clumsiness, it highlights that they share a completely unique private language.
Which makes the severance of that bond so catastrophic. Let's analyze the breaking point during their senior year.
This is where it all goes wrong.
They both get into their respective dream schools. Blair to Pepperdine, Declan elsewhere on a football scholarship.
And the conflict is framed as Declan's pragmatism colliding with Blair's romanticism.
Declan looks at the statistics of high school sweethearts surviving long distance. He factors in the rigorous schedule of college football and concludes that attempting a relationship is insanity.
He thinks they'll just resent each other.
He believes the strain will inevitably breed resentment and kill their bond entirely. So he executes a preemptive breakup to, quote-unquote, save the friendship.
Let's push back on that a bit, though.
Go for it.
Was it actually pragmatism, or was it a complete failure of courage?
Interesting distinction.
I read his statistics as a convenient shield. It's much easier to claim you are making a logical, mathematical decision to protect someone than to admit you are terrified of failing at a long-distance relationship.
He intellectualized his fear.
Exactly. And he took away her agency in the decision. For Blair, it wasn't logic. It was a profound abandonment.
We have to remember her core childhood trauma centers around an abusive father who abandoned her.
Declan's sudden withdrawal triggers her deepest attachment wounds. She doesn't feel protected. She feels discarded.
You're right to highlight the attachment theory aspect.
Yeah.
For someone with an anxious, preoccupied attachment style triggered by early abandonment, Declan's dismissive, avoidant behavior in that moment is the worst possible trigger.
It was a disaster.
He thought he was doing a controlled demolition of the romance to save the friendship foundation. But he miscalculated the structural integrity of her trust.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's the tragic irony that defines their 4-year silence.
The promise.
Yes, in a flashback, a young Declan comforts a young Blair about her absent father. By promising her, he says, "I don't know if your dad is in your future, but I know I will be."
He made a vow of permanence.
When he breaks up with her, he isn't just ending a teenage romance, he is violating that foundational vow. He pushed her away to save their friendship, but the act of pushing her away was so violent to her sense of security that it destroyed the friendship entirely.
That broken promise is the exact reason the glacier between them is so thick 4 years later.
So how do they begin to thaw it?
The shift happens outside of the contentious coffee shop environment. It happens at Lottie's funeral.
This is such a heavy scene.
It is a moment of profound vulnerability for Blair. Her college best friends, Roshi and Faye, couldn't make the trip on short notice.
So Blair is surrounded by people but feels entirely isolated in her grief.
And then she sees Declan sitting on the curb outside.
He isn't intrusive, he just states, "I just wanted to be here."
And he accidentally reveals that he already knows Roshi and Faye aren't there.
Which forces him to admit he's been checking her Instagram.
Under normal circumstances, Blair would have seized on that. She would have used it to mock him or build her walls higher.
But grief does something fascinating here. It completely rearranges her priorities.
In the face of losing Lottie, the anchor of her family, she doesn't have the energy to maintain her anger toward Declan.
She suddenly just craves the comfort of her oldest friend.
Grief impairs our ability to maintain complex defense mechanisms. It strips us down to our most primal needs. And in that moment, Blair's primal need is for a secure attachment figure.
Declan, despite their history, represents safety.
This softening leads to a moment of clarification regarding a massive assumption Blair has been harboring.
The Shelby incident.
Yes, she confronts him about a gorgeous blonde woman in a red dress she's seen on his Instagram.
She assumed it was his perfect new girlfriend, Shelby.
Declan's reaction is to laugh until he tears up, because Shelby is his cousin.
They took photos together at a family wedding.
Such a classic misunderstanding, but it speaks volumes about confirmation bias.
Blair spent 4 years assuming Declan moved on effortlessly. She used social media to confirm her own insecurities.
Realizing she was wrong dismantles a major pillar of her resentment. It allows them to transition from warring exes to coworkers attempting a fragile friendship.
Which brings us to the pivotal bowling alley scene at Johnny's Pints and Pins.
The bowling alley functions as a sociological third place.
An environment outside of home and work where social hierarchies level out.
Blair's invited to join the coffee shop crew, and we are introduced to Harper.
Harper is great. She's this slightly chaotic coworker with a cat named Chicken.
But Harper serves a crucial narrative function. We learn Harper has an agreement with Declan to stay completely sober to maintain her employment.
Declan is quietly but firmly looking out for her well-being.
It shows Blair that Declan's core trait, his protectiveness, hasn't vanished. It's just been redirected toward his employees.
And it triggers a sharp pang of jealousy in Blair when Harper casually recites Declan's highly specific coffee order.
Blair realizes that other people have learned his habits and quirks in the 4 years she's been exiled from his life.
It's a visceral reminder of the time they lost. But the true shift happens when the noise of the bowling alley fades into the background.
Declan and Blair finally have a direct conversation about their avoidance.
Declan pierces right through the small talk. He asks her if the root of their avoidance is someone not being worth my time or me not being worth yours.
Blair admits she thought he just didn't care anymore.
And Declan responds with terrifying sincerity. He says, "You've always been worth my time, Blair."
It's a staggering validation. He's confirming that the 4 years of radio silence were not born out of apathy.
The tectonic plates of their relationship are finally realigning. They agree to try being just friends.
But naturally, just as they find their footing, we get hit with external interference.
Interference that completely shatters their understanding of the past.
This brings us to the introduction of Gwen Renshaw, Declan's mother.
This twist blew my mind.
We learn that while Declan and Blair are renovating a house Declan recently purchased, Gwen pulls Blair aside and delivers a massive confession.
She admits that during their freshman year of college, at the period of total silence, Declan actually wrote a deeply vulnerable pen-and-paper letter to Blair.
And Gwen intercepted it.
She actively stole it so Blair would never read it.
It's a staggering violation of boundaries by a parent.
But what I find so compelling is the psychological justification Gwen offers.
She doesn't frame it as malicious sabotage.
No, she explains that during that specific time, she was consumed by her own profound grief over the loss of her mother.
She was in what psychologists call the fog of grief.
A state that severely impairs executive function and moral reasoning.
She was watching her son struggle, presumably with the loss of his football dreams and the loss of Blair, and in her deeply unstable state, she projected her own fears onto him.
She thought stealing the letter was a way to keep him safe from further heartbreak.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see a fascinating generational pattern of enmeshment and misguided martyrdom.
Everyone is trying to be a martyr.
Almost every major character in this narrative acts irrationally under the guise of protecting someone else.
Lottie suppresses the reality of her physical pain to protect Blair from worrying.
Gwen violates her son's privacy and agency to protect him from emotional pain.
And Declan, 4 years prior, broke his own heart and Blair's to protect her future at college.
They are all inflicting trauma on each other in a desperate attempt to act as shields.
It's an epidemic of people refusing to let their loved ones make their own choices.
But when Blair finally gets her hands on that stolen letter, the contents completely recontextualize Declan's character.
It turns out Declan wasn't just being a pragmatic jerk about long distance.
He wrote that he assumed Blair was going to Pepperdine and moving to New York City solely to secure a high-paying job.
To support her mother and Lottie financially.
He recognized the immense weight of her first-generation guilt.
And he backed away because he absolutely refused to be the emotional anchor, dragging her away from fulfilling that perceived obligation to her family.
It's a stunning revelation. He sacrificed his own happiness for what he believed was her necessary path to financial security.
He saw her family sacrifice, and he sacrificed himself to honor it.
The letter includes a line that is just devastatingly beautiful.
He tells her she's going to go far, and he promises to be her biggest fan.
He says he will buy every book she ever writes, even if he can't be with her.
And he signs off with, "I hope he holds your hand all the way there. I hope it's me."
He was literally handing her the keys to walk away, while desperately hoping she would choose to stay.
And because Gwen stole it, Blair spent 4 years thinking he just discarded her.
This revelation forces a massive paradigm shift for Blair.
The narrative she constructed about Declan's abandonment collapses.
But more importantly, it forces her to interrogate her own motivations. Declan stepped aside for her New York City consulting dreams. But the critical question arises.
Are those actually her dreams?
Or are they just the path of least resistance paved by her guilt?
Which catapults us into the climax of the story. Blair is spiraling.
She needs grounding.
So she sends a crisis text to her college best friends, Roshi and Faye.
And these women are the gold standard of friendship.
They drop everything, their jobs, their lives. They drive and fly across the country to show up on Blair's doorstep in Seabrook.
They provide the external validation and push she desperately needs.
They literally force her into a little black dress, do her hair, and push her out the door at 11:30 at night to go knock on Declan's door.
The little black dress serves as psychological armor here. Her friends are giving her the push to overcome her internal paralysis.
Now, Declan doesn't answer the door that night, which is entirely realistic, given the hour.
But the outcome of the door knock isn't the point.
The act itself is the victory.
Blair is finally breaking her pattern of passivity. She is making an active, terrifying choice to pursue what she wants, rather than retreating behind her defensive walls.
And it perfectly sets up the cinematic beach scene resolution.
Declan finds her the next day.
And he brings her flowers. But he doesn't just grab a generic bouquet from the grocery store.
He brings her a bundle of cotton candy, pink and blue hydrangeas.
The text notes, these are her absolute favorite, and they are incredibly rare to find in California.
He had them special ordered.
It's a physical, undeniable manifestation of his continued attentiveness to her specific desires.
They sit on the sand, and the emotional dam finally breaks.
Declan confesses that his lifelong feelings for her never wavered.
He explains his hesitation over the summer, why he was running hot and cold.
He was still terrified of holding her back from her prestigious EY job in the city.
He was paralyzed by the fear of repeating their high school fallout.
But this time, they communicate.
And the true resolution of the novel isn't just the romantic reconciliation, it's Blair's self-actualization.
Yes. Because Blair finally vocalizes a truth she's been hiding from herself.
She doesn't want the Ernst & Young job.
She doesn't want the corporate grind in New York.
That entire trajectory was built on a foundation of perceived obligation and guilt toward Lottie and her mom.
What she actually wants is to stay in Seabrook. She wants to be close to her surviving family.
She wants to write her novels, the manuscripts she's been secretly tinkering with all summer.
And she wants to be with Declan.
It is a profound moment of unenmeshment. Blair finally separates the debt she thinks she owes her family from the authentic desires of her own life.
Ironically, by choosing to stay in Seabrook and embrace a creative, unpredictable life as a writer, she is honoring Lottie's final wish far more accurately.
Exactly. More than if she had taken a miserable corporate job out of guilt.
Lottie told her to go enjoy life, not go suffer in a cubicle to repay me.
The romance with Declan acts as the catalyst, but personal liberation is the ultimate destination.
The payoff of the friends to lovers and second chance tropes here is phenomenal. Haley Pham uses the title Just Friends with absolute irony.
At no point in their lives were they ever just friends.
They were foundational to each other's existence. And looking at the broader context, Pam's deep understanding of her millennial and Gen Z audience shines through here.
The entire novel is a reflection of intense generational anxieties.
The pressure to commodify every passion.
The terror of choosing a career path that defines your identity.
The crushing expectations placed on children of immigrants or struggling parents.
And a desperate search for a physical and emotional space that actually feels like home.
She takes these massive existential dreads and wraps them in the comforting, sun-drenched package of a coastal romance.
When Declan says, "It's always been you for me," it fulfills the ultimate fantasy.
That someone can see you clearly, know all your messy history, understand your family baggage, and actively choose you anyway.
It is a deeply satisfying narrative resolution that offers several profound takeaways for the reader.
Let's distill those down.
If we synthesize the psychological journeys of these characters, 3 overarching themes emerge. First, true love, whether familial or romantic, requires radical vulnerability.
You cannot protect a relationship by building walls of pragmatism or silence. You only guarantee isolation.
Second, you cannot make life-altering decisions for other people based on your own assumptions of what they need.
Declan assumed Blair needed New York for financial security. Gwen assumed Declan needed space from Blair to heal.
Both assumptions were catastrophic because they bypassed communication and robbed the other person of their agency.
And finally, grief, while utterly devastating and disorienting, possesses a unique power to clarify what truly matters.
Lottie's death stripped away Blair's superficial, guilt-driven ambitions and forced her to confront her authentic desires.
Which brings us back to you, the listener. We've spent this deep dive analyzing characters, building emotional armor, intellectualizing their feelings, and intercepting literal and metaphorical letters.
But how does this reflect your own life?
Have you ever pushed someone away, a partner, a friend, a family member, out of a misguided attempt to protect them?
When really you were just protecting yourself from the vulnerability of failure.
Have you ever pursued a career path, a degree, or a specific lifestyle entirely out of a sense of guilt or perceived obligation, rather than actual authentic passion?
It is frighteningly easy to wake up on a train headed to a destination you don't even want to visit, simply because you felt you owed someone else the price of the ticket.
Those are the uncomfortable but necessary questions this narrative challenges us to examine.
It asks us to interrogate our own motivations with brutal honesty.
Are we acting out of love? Or are we acting out of fear disguised as love?
Are we living the life we genuinely desire? Or are we living a life strategically designed to cause the least amount of friction and disappointment for the people around us?
So, what does this all mean? Think about the letters in your own life that never got delivered.
Words you held back because you convinced yourself you were doing the pragmatic, logical, or protective thing.
The feelings you swallowed because you thought statistics should dictate your heart.
What if the most genuinely protective thing you can do for the people you love isn't shielding them from your messy, complicated feelings?
But actually trusting them enough to share the reality of those feelings.
What if the absolute bravest thing you can do today is simply admit what you actually want?
Opening yourself up to that level of exposure is a terrifying prospect. It requires dismantling the very defense mechanisms that have kept you safe.
But as Lottie so wisely noted, the fear only comes when it's love.
And perhaps leaning into that fear is the exact compass you need to point you toward where you are truly supposed to be.
I think that is a perfect provocative thought to end on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We hope it gave you something substantial to chew on, and maybe, just maybe, it gave you the courage to deliver a few letters of your own. Until next time.